Hey y'all, it's Stephen Van Kampen-Lewis, and today I am here with the crew that went to Brazil recently for some orchid adventures, specifically Cattleya adventures, down in uh, the area sort of north of Brasilia and then south to Diamantina. And of course, I've been talking about it in a bunch of my videos. And then, I was with Francisco Miranda, who is the local taxonomist from Brazil, who showed us around. Many of you know him from the different videos that I've done with him, or from his lectures that he does around the country, or just buying his amazing Cattleyas from South Florida, or Central Florida, I should say. And then, of course, we also have Chris Maupin and his wife, Megan Gorman Maupin, and this rounds out our crew of most of our crew. We also have Mauricio Verbunen, who joined us for the Amalia habitat, but he's not here today. But we're just going to do a quick sort of discussion of some of the drone videos that Francisco took of the Amalia, as well as some pseudopodiums. And also, we're going to sort of quickly go through some of our favorite stories. And at the end, we'll discuss the status of Francisco's Brazil orchid trips, and how you can go on them, as well as what happens on these. Besides the videos that I've shown, you can get it straight from Francisco of what he plans to do. So, of course, all of you know me, but Francisco, why don't you introduce yourself, and then Chris and Megan, introduce yourself real quick.
For sure. My name is Francisco Miranda. I'm originally from Brazil. I started my formation as a marine biologist and ended finishing it as a botanist. Then I went to the Amazon, stayed there for 4 years, where I actually started working with caracedoms and other Amazon species. Eventually, I moved back to Rio, started a business there, and from that point was just involved with orchids until today. And in the late 90s, I was coming to the US frequently to do talk tours and do shows. We decided to move to the US in 1999. So it's 25 years ago. And then we just have Miranda Orchids, which is our production company. I mean, I bring plants from Brazil and we have a lab that produces plants here. And that's about it. Orchids are our full-time business since then. And of course, I've been doing trips to Brazil a lot because I need new photos all the time for the presentations. Of course, I enjoy just going to the habitats. And that's about it. I'm also a taxonomist, but I try not to advertise that too much because people don't like taxonomists. You keep changing names of stuff all the time, you know. Not me so much. I'm a little bit conservative in that respect. Okay, that's about it. I can talk 1 hour about that, but I guess this is the nitty gritty.
And Chris.
Yeah, so I am actually a research scientist at Texas A&M University. However, my great grandfather had one of the kind of earliest orchid cut flower nurseries in New England, and he basically got his kids, roped them into helping out around the place. It was a fairly big operation, lots of glass houses, talking early 20th century. And my grandfather moved to Florida to kind of work on rockets and telemetry and kind of the space race and all of that. And but brought orchids with him. And so I was born and raised in Florida. Was always around my grandfather's place, and so I've been around orchids for forever. I've known Francisco since 2006-ish, right around there. Just showed up at his place one day, and it was just a solid, like, greenhouse wall, floor to ceiling, like, with these first bloom Lobelia cerulean seedlings. And it's like, I'm gonna talk your ear off and ask you a lot of questions. And yeah, I just have always been really interested in the bifoliate species, especially things like Nobilia or Amalii, because it's such a unique kind of um, natural history in terms of like where it lives, plant size, like the flower size relative to the plant size, in violations. Basically, things that kind of have also been considered a little bit peskier to grow by American orchid growers. So it's kind of fun to like have those growing for that reason as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
And Megan, you are maybe the most advanced orchid grower I ever saw, right?
So
Definitely the best orchid judge.
I'm connected to orchids through marriage.
Mm.
So I am certainly no orchid expert, but I'm a geologist as my career and background. So I do just like being outdoors, seeing interesting places. We really enjoy traveling. So Chris has talked about the potential for this trip to happen for years. So when it came up, I thought, even though I'm not super knowledgeable about the orchids, it would be a really cool place to go and see. And it was really great seeing the orchids, and there was some super cool geology there. So there was a lot for everybody. And yeah, I got to pick some out. I guess I am good at picking out good looking flowers in a nursery. So yeah, it was a great trip, and I was glad to get to tag along as the non-orchid expert.
I love that you got to see orchid crazy in its natural habitat, and just how it can drive those of us who have been doing it for a while a little batty, and just uh, anyway, now
Yeah.
you know.
Oh yeah. It's a it's a full introduction to all of that.
That's funny. Um, all right, so yeah, I think one of the things that we want to do right now is I've mentioned in some of my other videos that Francisco took some really cool drone footage. And so just so everybody knows, this was the first time that Francisco used a drone in orchid habitat, and the original purpose was to sort of find some plants. So we would park on the side of the road and maybe send the drone out to find plants way off, a half mile away or something, and then we could scour the area a little more quickly. But I think it turned out to be a little different. That you ended up, you got some cool habitat footage, but you also got some really cool flower footage as well, right?
Well, that's true. Uh, the first thing is that I really wanted to learn how to use the drone because the controls can be a little bit finicky. Let's put it this way, the thing moves too fast and changes directions too fast. And I was thinking that was going to be really easy to see the plants. And yes, it was easy with the nobiliars and the certopodiums, but with the rupicolous lilies, things are a little bit more complicated because, I mean, the habitats are very busy and the flowers are usually smaller. So you really have to get close. And because you don't want to crash the drone, you keep using obstacle avoidance, which means that a drone simply stops when there is a lot of interruptions. It just doesn't go, which is good because you don't lose the drone. But I need to practice a little bit more of that. Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, my idea was to, besides seeing the plants, just take some footage from the habitats in general, like flybys, that kind of stuff, which is what I have in the background here. And it will get better in the future. It was probably as bad as it could be for the first first outing, but it's going to get better.
All right, and so tee this up for us, Francisco. What are we looking at here?
Okay, this is a habitat of Kampen-Lewis. I'll try to run the video. I know it's kind of a bit choppy because it was a 4K video, and it's maybe too much for the bandwidth I have for the Zoom meeting. But let's go. Let's see if it goes. So essentially, this is a region in Brazil, central Brazil, which is very dry seasonally. It's mostly deciduous forest, and Cerrado is kind of a transition between both of them. And this is where Catanabila ramari grows. Um, essentially all this area, wherever you have the semi-deciduous to deciduous forest, that's where the plants are going to be found, on the rock outcroppings or on the lower laying areas. Elevation here is about 2,000 to 2,500 feet. And this time of the year is very, very dry. And essentially, this kind of view is mostly to show the natural habitat by itself. I mean, we are not getting close to the plants. This is a second video that I can show you guys right now.
So
Wow.
Can you
Yeah.
see that?
Yeah. That clump was incredible.
Yes, and the thing you can see how it's a little bit jerky because it was kind of windy. And even though the drone has image stabilization, I mean, the drone itself is not stable in the wind to a point. I mean, it was really windy. In some of the areas, you remember, we were kind of even afraid of launching the drone because it was so windy. But that clump was something. I think that was the highlight of the trip in terms of photographing. And the thing is that you remember, Chris, that this clump was about 30 feet above the ground.
Yep.
So you took some nice pictures from the ground, but the problem is you only see the bottom of the flowers, regardless of whatever telephoto lens you have. With the drone, you can actually see them from the front. And I think this is actually probably the best use for the drone in terms of orchid hunting.
Yeah, I remember when you first mentioned the drone when we had lunch together a couple years back, and I was like, "That is a perfect idea for exactly this reason." I've heard you talk about like how high up the trees they can be, and like it's like that's going to be a good investment.
Yeah, the thing is that that tree was so busy in terms of branches, you can see. So to maneuver the drone to go inside there, because you see obstacle avoidance is about the 3 feet from the obstacle. So in between branches, I mean, the drone just stops, don't go anywhere. But I was able to maneuver and get close enough to that plant. Now to get out of that, I couldn't back up the drone. We had to look up, find the blue sky, and just shoot it up. Because it's the only way to get away from the tree. And that worked okay.
And that's just such a stunning flower. I mean,
it is. Actually, this is a very high quality flower. That's a very good Lapilla ramali. And but yeah, it's still up in the tree, 30 feet up in the trees.
I want to say, like, I feel like a lot of the ones we saw, you kind of hear anecdotes about the quality of natural species in habitat and relative to like line bred stuff. We saent some absolutely incredible.
Oh, trust me. The first time I went to this habitat was in 1986, and I went back in 1987. Some of the best Nobile ramalis came from there.
I'm not surprised based on, this was, looking through my photos, I was just like, dang, like these are so good.
Yeah, the second test for the drone, I think, was even more successful, although it was my first short move. It was too short. But that gives a good idea. That's the Circopodium. Okay, you see.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that palm tree was like a quarter mile from where we were.
That palm tree was so far, like we couldn't even see the drone. We just saw, these sort
of
lumps
kind of the
off in
horizon,
the distance.
the horizon, the palm tree. But the drone got there less than a minute. And got that. I mean, all these Circopodiums in flower is just gorgeous.
That was the cool thing about the podiums, is being able to just like see them like from such a distance, because there's no busy like patterning in the way from branches and stuff on those palm trees. It was just like
exactly. So that's the best thing. That's the ideal situation for the drone. And the thing is that you will take probably more than half an hour to get to that tree just to double check it to see if there were any Circopodiums there. With the drone, you just send a drone and back, and that's it. Good. Next time I'm going to do longer footages of that. Already planning for next year or 26, another trip there.
And for everyone at home, this is Certipodium St. Ledgerinum, and we saw a bunch of them, and each one of those bulbs is 2 or 3 feet long, and the spikes are even longer than that. So they're big plants.
That's a full size palm tree, like tall.
Yeah, you can tell they just encircle the whole palm tree. It's a nice thing to see.
Very cool.
Unfortunately, this one here doesn't have many flowers open, but I took a picture of one of the others that has it was full of flowers open, which is nice. But I didn't record the movie of that one. You see, I have to start thinking like a YouTuber and start really thinking about every place I go, make movies all the
Well,
time.
you know, a famous one now.
Not to that quality stuff, you know.
All right. So now we'll chat a little bit about some of our favorite stories from the trip, and let's start with Megan.
Well, this was all brand new to me. I didn't really know what to expect at all. Um, and I just really enjoyed how many different like regions we got to see. How different the orchids were. Felt proud when I finally found some on my own, and I was like the first person to point them out. Francisco said I was doing good. It made me feel really proud. I loved the cave. I know people are here more for the orchids, but gosh, the cave we stopped by was just one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Just huge, massive entrance. Just came around the corner and there it was. So, um, yeah, I really loved seeing all the different places, staying all of the little different towns, and just getting to see a whole variety of orchids. I didn't know what to expect as far as, how much we were gonna see. Um, all of the very small ones, the purple ones scattered all over the rocks was really impressive. I'm not good with the name, so you'll have to fill that in. The little purple ones that were on the rocks.
It was the Hoffmannsegella rupestris.
Yeah, the
Okay.
rupestris that were literally, it was like a carpet of rupestris
Yeah,
flowers.
they
Yeah.
were
And you
so
guys were lucky because it's the first time in 40 years that I see that population all in bloom.
yeah, it was amazing.
Beginning of finishing, but never like that.
Yeah, yeah. Each little ridge of like the rocks we stepped over, there was more and
More,
more and
yeah.
more. Um, so yeah, I really loved that, and I loved the food too. Brazil was amazing all around.
Yeah, that was the idea. I always say that. You're not going to get hungry there, really.
Oh
No,
gosh, it was just it was so great. I am like missing it right now. I want some of that pizza.
yeah, with the honey and oh, it's the best pizza I've ever had
Mm-hmm.
in
And
Brazil.
just to dovetail into that, the food. I had no idea that Brazil was such a great cheese place, and the
Oh,
cheese they're talking about this cheese for the pizza just made it so different than what we get in the U.S. and it was amazing. It was really good stuff. And Chris, what about you? I'm guessing
man.
it's going to be something to do with Amaliai.
Honestly, like I have, yeah, that this trip was like as good as trips like that, like field work type trips can get. Like I had, yeah, I could tell stories all day and banter, but like a couple, yeah, I thought it was cool getting to like finally see kind of like this actual habitat, like and kind of be able to get the like kind of a little bit of meteorological observations and kind of like altitudes and stuff like that. And yeah, I really enjoy seeing like how things are actually adapted to growing and that in like where they're supposed to be growing and kind of just always kind of strikes me very hard how different kind of the accepted cultural techniques are. And but as far as like, yeah, no, I think it's we hadn't seen a single like house or place that had like put Amalia like on a tree in their yard or like any place like my understanding is that like there's a lot of places in Wakiriana habitat and around kind of where it's favorable climate. They have like clumps of them in trees and stuff, and we didn't see like any of them until the very last day, and like or the very last day in Amalia habitat, and we are all very sad, right? I'm very sad, and I tell Mauricio, who was just backstory, he was phenomenal at spotting them. Like it was unbelievable to me. Like 3 days out there, he was still just blowing my mind, like the very last day. And it's just so funny to me. It's like when you find the trees, you will find the plants. It's like that's like the it's
Yeah.
like that's yes, but that like at speed in a vehicle on dirt roads at a distance, it was remarkable. Um, and the last day, we're like, I kind of jokingly, but also not jokingly, told him, I was like your first beer tonight's on me. If you find me one more good Amalii that I can photograph at eye level. And at the end of 3 days in the habitat, not like 5 minutes later, we rolled right past the very first house that had them on a post, like in full bloom. And he goes, "There you go." It's like that was just.
That doesn't
I
count.
was like, "Oh, and yeah, that killed me. For me, like seeing kind of what real like Brazil is like, what most of most of the actual landmass is such a huge country. Like I think a lot of Americans don't really have a good grasp of just how vast it is and how many climatological regions and different mountain ranges and stuff. Kind of there's a few different maybe stereotypes like that exist in our mind, but getting to see stuff like away from like the concentrated cities or like something kind of cookie cutter textbook, like getting to actually be out there, like and kind of interact with people as they are, and kind of yeah, and it having somebody like Francisco there who is not only from there but has been doing this for forever, so you know knows orchid field work, just like forwards and backwards. It was just like perfect experience to if you yeah. I mean, this is something I've wanted to do for years. We've probably been chatting about it since 2006, but yeah, it was can't wait to go back, I'll say that.
And Francisco, what about you? What did you enjoy most about having a bunch of
Making fun
Brazil
of
Well,
noobs?
I actually
Yeah.
enjoyed the group, the way it worked. I mean, it was just a perfect trip. And yeah, just saying something interesting was that the so-called rescue mission on the Mabiller habitat that Mauricio disappeared. They had to send the drone.
Yeah, that's right. We had to find him with
Oh,
a
with
drone.
Mauricio, yeah.
I have a
The guy
great
was supposed to, the guy was
picture.
supposed to stay around the place we were. Found out he was like 2 miles up the road,
He was
and
This lady got a
eventually we
longer
found the
ride.
drone. But we were going back and forth with the car, and I was starting really to get worried about where we're going to find this
Yeah,
guy.
he was so dedicated to finding them. And then we drove up the road and found a bunch more.
and that was the
Yeah,
spot we came back to the next
Yeah.
day we started at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Steve, you mentioned that
and
video.
and just finally, just want to show this picture here, just to give an idea to people how dry those plants really are in this region. Because of the drought is always long, but this year for some reason it looked a little bit longer. So the plants were really looking like that. You look at a plant like this, I mean, the plant looks like that really. The pseudobulbs, leaves, and it still is holding 6 seed pods
Yep.
and a couple of flower spikes.
It was the most informative part of like how the plant actually lives, that like kind of you if you watch one of your talks, or you kind of dig far enough into it, the root system, like that plant is all roots. It was unbelievable to me, even knowing it. Kind of you can know it from a book perspective, but like when you actually see, like being able to find plants when you see like those white giant cord roots like coming all the way like down, it's like just look up, and that was incredible.
And just for everybody who's watching this, wondering about Mauricio, we had all kind of split up to look for a Amalii in the middle of nowhere. So there's no cell service, there's no people really, there's just nothing. And we're just a dirt road, some farm fields, and some Cerrado. And Mauricio just went far enough down the road that we were driving up and down back in the road up and down the road looking for them, and we just couldn't find them. The sun was starting to set, and we just didn't know what to do. And then eventually started sending the drone out looking for Mauricio, and then it didn't work, and he just sort of appeared over the horizon. I think the drone did see him eventually, but yeah, he was kind of wondering where we were, and we were wondering where he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, happens a lot when you do this kind of trip, you know. That's why I always say, I forgot to do it. We should have put our GPS trackers. There is a program that does that, that shows on the map
Oh yeah,
exactly
that's right.
where. We didn't have time to do it. You see, that's one thing with what happens on this kind of trips. You get so excited when you get to the place there, you just want to start, and then you forget to do all the stuff that you were supposed to do, like get your locations and that kind of stuff. Kind of somewhat important.
Right.
Next time.
So one of the things, I mean, there's so many things that I would want to talk about, and then I've literally made 3 YouTube videos about the things that I wanted to talk about. So picking one was tough, but I figured, Chris would cover the Amalii habitat. So I'm thinking about some of the other things, and when we were in the Hoffman-Sagella habitat, and we were looking for Constantia, and we found Constantia christini and microscopica. And so, we had seen these incredibly harsh habitats, but the Hoffman-Sagellas, they have the cracks in the rocks, so they're accumulating some moisture. There's probably some moisture being held by the roots around the Amalii. But these Constantia were just on the side of these rocks in just the most harsh habitat. There's some lichens growing around some of the roots, so maybe that's holding on to a little bit of moisture. But these little tiny plants are this big, and their flowers are larger. Uh, and just seeing that was just mind blowing. And then having 2 species right there that we got to see. And then in the same area, we found those bulbophyllums, which were maybe A. diamantinum. Francisco said, I think they're undescribed, but I looked it up, and maybe A. diamantina had been
Yeah,
described in 2020.
the white flowers, I think actually, yeah, they were Pulbophyllum rupicolum, but yeah, somebody separated them into separate species depending on the location. But I still think they might be rupicolum. Might
Yeah,
be.
and I'll have to look that up because, and the bulbs were tiny. I thought they were Constantia. The bulbs were Constantia size, but then they had one little long narrow leaf on the top. And so I knew that I was looking at something different. So just seeing those weird things out there. And one of the other things that I thought was interesting was just how little it seems pretty understudied. That whole area. There's just not. There's not there. There needs to be more work. I feel like more studies and more descriptions, and not just necessarily the orchids, of the other plants too.
Totally agree with you. Go there all the time, but we are looking for specific things. We never do like a general study in the area.
Yeah. All right, Francisco. So this has been fun. Can you tell us a little bit about the status of your trips? When do you plan to go? Are you going to start taking folks again? And then how do folks find out more?
Yeah, that one of the objectives of that trip we made was just to see how the things were there, because the last time I was there was in 2009, 15 years ago. So everything could have gone just like totally destroyed or whatever. You never know. But there's also lots of plants. This is a place that is interesting to go. Although what happens is that this is an area that doesn't have much in terms of variety of species. You can find several plants, but not that much variation. You notice when you went to Minas Gerais, you could see a lot more different stuff. Okay. And in general, what I'm planning to do is start again, because when these things start, I mean, a lot of people already want to go next year, want to go to South Brazil, want to go to this, to that. So I'm going to start during this winter to update my website, the tours website, which is the mirandaorchids.net, which I haven't touched in a couple of years. And we started doing the planning because many of these areas, I don't know for how long they're going to be there. So actually, I don't know for how long we are going to be here. I mean, it's so you never know. So if you have a chance to go, I probably will start from the second half of next year and so on, depending on how people really like those things. I mean, I've been taking people for a long time to the natural habitat for more than 30 years. And I haven't found not even once somebody that didn't enjoy it. I mean, we always saw a lot of stuff. And that's what I want to do. I just don't want to take people to regions and see, well, we might find that. No, we're going to find that. Okay, it's not just like a maybe. I think people really want to see the plants, and you're going to take the people to see the plants, like you guys did. I mean, you saw the nobilis, you saw the Rupiculus letters, and all the stuff that we were supposed to see, we saw, the Certopodiums, etc. That's the idea. And I think for next year, probably for the second half of the year, we're already going to have some tours ready. So in that, the only thing I can ask people to do is that if somebody gets interested in doing this, just send me an email, and then I can put in my mailing list and keep people updated about how things are going. I think that's the only thing we can be done at this point. But
And
in the next few months, a lot of things are going to happen. That's for sure.
I'll add your email address down below. That's info@mirandaorchids.com or .net.
No, .com. I have to
.com.
check my email. I have an email on the other site too, but because I haven't used it much, I don't know if it's still working. But the mirandaorchids.com is fine because I can just redirect to the other one. So that's
Yeah.
not a problem with that.
And I really enjoyed looking at your old photos and your old stories that you have still
Oh
posted to
yeah.
mirandaorchids.net. There's some cool stuff there.
Yeah, the photos there are kind of small. I'm probably going to maybe when I update the site, just put some slightly high resolution pictures. I don't want to put really extreme high resolution pictures, otherwise people don't want to go. They just saw see the pictures, put in a big TV, and say, well, that's okay. I don't need to go there. And just
I
see them
knew
on the
it.
big screen TV.
Teasing us with the pixels.
The food. Oh my gosh, you can't
Well, yeah, that
through the
and
computer
just
screen.
if you go to South Brazil, then you're going to really enjoy more. Besides seeing purpuratas and that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
It's let's put it this way: it's a more civilized habitat with more civilized amenities.
Yeah, I do want to see that South Brazil intermedia purpurata habitat and
Oh yeah, but the thing is, intermediates and purpuratas don't flower at the same time, so you have to make two trips.
that's right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But that works.
And so many blooms. It was really amazing, and I can't wait to go back. Seriously, it was a lot of fun, and
Second that.
yeah.
Yeah, we just have to plan to see something different, unless of course you want to go to the same place. But then you know exactly where to go too. So yeah, I really
Yeah.
want to go back to the same place because I told you we probably took a wrong turn there and we missed many of the nice places that I knew.
Hmm.
You know, 15 years. I mean, you can lose your bearings a little bit. It's a very vast area. So we actually saw more cercopodiums than on the regular road that I get. You see monobuilders, but you don't see that many cercopodiums. And you saw a gazillion cercopodiums. If you really wanted to spend the whole day in that cercopodium area, we could fly the drone all the way to the horizon and see lots of nice trees. Something to do in the future.
Well,
Even
Francisco, Chris, Megan, I really appreciate the recap and the discussion, and that was a lot of fun. Well, yeah, it really was a great trip, and I hope other people get to go on the same trip and go to different places in Brazil. And I really, like I said, I'll be doing another trip with you, Francisco, sometime in the future, and then I hope other folks do as well. And I know Chris and Megan really enjoyed it also.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it was great to be able to talk with you guys again. I mean, we've been in contact on our group, a WhatsApp group, but still, it's good to see you guys again.
you too,
You
Francisco and
too.
Steve. Yeah, I
And
can't
we'll
wait.
keep in touch. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
All right, y'all. I hope everybody has a good weekend, and we'll talk to you later.
Looking forward. Alrighty, later.
Turkey for me.